Good evening all, welcome to another video with PRATHAM Test Prep. This is your host Sushila, and today we will be talking about Nari Shakti Vandan Abhiniyam. Now, on September 18, the Union Cabinet took a historic step by approving the Women Reservation Bill, which mandates a 33% reservation for women in both Lok Sabha and state assemblies of India. This monumental legislation aims to ensure equal representation for women in the highest legislative bodies of the country. The main features of this amendment, that is 128th Constitutional Amendment Bill, are 33% reservation for women. So the Women Reservation Bill mandates that 1/3 of the seats in the Lok Sabha and state assemblies will be reserved for women candidates. This provision aims to promote gender equality and increase women's representation in India's legislative bodies. The second important key feature is rotational reservation. So this mechanism prevents the monopolization of reserved seats by specific political parties or individuals, and it is brought to ensure the fairness and equitable distribution and in the reserved seats, as the seats will be rotated after every general election. Thirdly, sub-reservation of marginalized groups. The bill also proposes the sub-reservation within the 33% quota for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and Anglo-Indians. This sub-reservation recognizes the importance of addressing intersectional inequalities and promoting diversity in the political representation. Now let's see what has been the state of women's representation in other countries. Now, according to the Inter-Parliamentary Union Report 2019, the African nation of Rwanda came up to the top in the Assembly's long-term portrayal of 61.3%, followed by Cuba with 53.2%. Nepal held the 36th position in the South Asia with 32.7%. The unfortunate fact here is that India came in at the position of 149th with 14.4% portrayals, and in stark contrast to Bangladesh and Pakistan. Now, party line reservation countries like France, Korea, Nepal, among others, have passed quotas as high as 50% for the candidate list. Countries with party quota laws include Argentina, Mexico, and Costa Rica, which also have 36% female representation in their national legislatures. Through voluntary, that is non-legislative quotas, which are by political parties, nations like South Africa, Sweden, and Germany have attained comparable levels of female representation, with 14.48% of its current National Assembly made up. South Africa is a great case study in this scenario. Now, after this particular study came out, this particular report, Inter-Parliamentary Union Report 2019, it emphasized what was the situation of women, of representation of women in our country, and that is why this that is one of the biggest reasons why this key legislation has been brought into place. Now let's just see what are the key features of and we'll see what articles will be amended. Now, the articles to be amended include Article 293AA, Article 330A, 332A and 334A. Now, articles to be amended, if we see, to achieve the goal of women reservation, the bill proposed amendments to the constitutional provision with respect to the National Capital Territory of Delhi, that is given in Article 293A. Those are special provisions with respect to Delhi. Now, new articles that are being inserted, the Women's Reservation Bill also introduced 3 new articles, namely Article 330A, 332A and 334A. The Articles 330A and 332A, newly proposed articles, want to establish women's reservation in the Lok Sabha and state assemblies respectively. And Article 334A has been included as a sunset provision, which would gradually end this affirmative action policy after 15 years. Now, apart from that, there have been horizontal women reservation. It is noteworthy in this particular bill that the bill has included provisions for horizontal reservation that cut across different quotas, particularly in categories that are scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, as well as Anglo-Indian. Now, another key feature of this bill is rotation of seats. So the designated seats for female lawmakers may be distributed by rotations of various constituencies within a state or union territory. Now, there is another thing that a majority is required. So for women reservation bill, it would require a special majority of parliament and ratification by half of the states, that is 2/3 of the majority of both the houses, and approval of from at least 50% stake so that it comes into implementation. Now, another feature about this bill which has been questioned and has been criticized is regarding its implementation. So now the bill, the provisions in the bill says that provision relating to reservation of seats for women shall come into effect after an exercise of delimitation is undertaken for this purpose after the relevant figures of the first census taken after the bill is passed have been published. Now, however, how much ever we try, the earliest moment when 1/3 of these Lok Sabha seats are likely to be occupied by women is 2029. As before that, the chances of implementing and organizing the delimitation exercise would be very difficult, considering there are Lok Sabha elections to be held the next year. Now, let's talk about the timeline of reservation of women in politics in India. So the issue of reservation for women in politics can be traced back to the Indian national movement in 1931 in their letter to the British Prime Minister submitting the official memorandum jointly issued on the status of women in the new constitution by 3 women bodies leaders, Begum, Shah Nawaz and Sarojini Naidu. Then the Government of India Act 1935 gave women separate electorates, but this did not reserve seats for them in the legislature. It marked a step towards political participation of women. Then in 1988, the National Perspective Plan for Women recommended that reservation be provided to women from the level of panchayat to the parliament. These recommendations paved the way for the historic enactment of 73rd and 74th amendments of the constitution, which mandate all state governments to reserve 1/3 of the seats for women in Panchayati Raj institutions and 1/3 of the offices of the chairperson at all levels in Panchayati Raj institutions and in urban local bodies respectively. Within these seats, 1/3 are reserved for scheduled caste or scheduled tribe women. In 1998, the bill was reintroduced in the 12th Lok Sabha. However, the bill lapsed because it did not receive adequate support. Later on, it was reintroduced 3 more times in 1999, 2002 and 2003, and the bill did not win the majority of votes despite having support from major political parties. Now, in the year 2009, the government tabled the bill amid protests. The bill was reintroduced in Rajya Sabha, and it was approved with 186 votes to 1. However, it was never brought up to the discussion in Lok Sabha, and it became inoperative upon the dissolution of 15th Lok Sabha. In May 2013, the Ministry of Women and Child Development constituted a committee on the status of women, which recommended ensuring at least 50% of reservation of seats for women in local bodies, state legislative assemblies, parliament, ministerial levels and all decision-making bodies of the government. In 2015, the report on the status of women in India noted that the representation of women in state assemblies and parliament continues to be dismal. It recommended reserving at least 50% of the seats in local bodies, state legislative assemblies, parliament, ministerial levels and all decision-making bodies of the government. Now, let's talk about, there are certain political implications and concerns regarding this particular bill. First of all, the main concern is delayed implementation. Now, considering the bill talks about the practice of delimitation, which will take the exercise of delimitation takes a lot of time, as it calculates, as it takes into consideration the population and then the reservation on how it's supposed to be done. Second political implication of and concern here is the rotating reserve constituency. Now, considering that there is going to be rotating reserve constituency, now in this particular situation, what might happen is the member of parliament of that particular constituency will not be motivated enough to work for their own constituency, considering that it might be rotated in the next election time. Now, the bill is silent about reservation in Rajya Sabha and state legislative councils. There has been argument that Rajya Sabha, in its own the way it works and in its constitution, cannot reserve seats for women. Now, lastly, reduced southern state representation. Certain politicians from the south of India have raised a concern that the southern state representation will become low, considering because of the population density. Like in comparison, if we see the population density in the northern of India is more than the southern of India, so there are concerns regarding reduced southern state representations also. Now, in conclusion, if we see that the bill's empowerment of women will contribute to a nation's overall development, especially for women, and will help to address the intertwined socio-economic and political inequalities, as it's being shown in women's reservation in panchayats, where 1/3 of the seats in direct panchayat elections are reserved for women as per 73rd constitutional amendment. Now, women's deliberate exclusion from political participation is unacceptable and a violation of their democratic and constitutional rights, given the systematic undervaluation of their labor and the socio-economic sphere. Therefore, now talking about the importance of this particular bill, that it is essential for the government to take proactive affirmative actions such as this bill. Although the reservation alone cannot completely eradicate India's deeply ingrained gender bias, yet it is a vital measure to instigate change and ensure equality in all spheres of our society. That is it from our side today. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and share, and please, for more such content, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much.